I was scrolling through my YouTube subscriptions one day and saw that my second favorite British music commentator made a short talking about how the new Swans album had the best raps of the year on it.
In case you weren't aware, this is a hip-hop release from John Michel and Anthony James that really doubles down on the classic 2000s sound of Chipmunk soul. I'm talking Common, I'm talking Kanye, those classic days.
Say less, I'm in. You take pretty much any soul song, pitch up the vocals, and put some drums under it, I'm eating that shit up. Yeah, this thing rocks. I'd never heard of John Michel or Anthony James prior to stumbling across this album, but they left a hell of a first impression. John's hungry delivery plays off of Anthony's cinematic and soulful production beautifully throughout its 12 tracks, with plenty of features to keep things interesting. There's very little as far as a back catalog or information about these guys online, so I figured I'd just ask them myself. What inspired you to start rapping?
Yeah, right, so I played the saxophone for 12 years. So when I started playing saxophone, I started recording saxophone probably some point in high school. And then after I was recording it, I'm like, let me just make beats. And then I'm like, let me start rapping on the beats. And eventually I got way better at rapping than I was at making beats. So in college, I was sort of looking for different producers and stuff. And then I came across Bedhead Bobby, who ended up producing the first tape, Sinful Temptations. We met at some random party at Temple.
Sinful Temptations packs a lot into its 21-minute runtime. It feels a bit more stripped back than Egotrip, with tracks like Head in the Clouds and Culture having some of John's most introspective verses over constantly sprawling jazz samples, while still packing a punch. The interlude in the middle of the project sounds like one of the smoother cuts off of Tyler the Creator's Cherry Bomb, and it happens to lead into my favorite track, Money, which has one of the nastiest samples I've heard in a minute. Would you say that the sax kind of influenced your production style?
Oh, 100%, right? I think playing saxophone and studying the greats, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, some of my favorite artists, Kind of Blue by Miles Davis is I think one of the best albums ever made. That definitely influenced my determination for what good music is, right? Variations in the beat and moments and individual things that kind of occur and how you build something cinematic. I look to Kind of Blue for a lot of that kind of stuff.
John grew up in the west side of Chicago, with his family slowly moving out to the burbs as he grew up, and went to college in Philly, where he met Anthony James at a show that he played on their campus. The two began work on Egotrip pretty much immediately after Sinful Temptations dropped in 2023. This project's palette of instruments and samples is pretty similar to its predecessor, but is more detailed and grandiose, fitting to its album-sized length. The songs combine samples with live instrumentation pretty seamlessly, with John and Anthony both contributing and fighting each other until it sounds good.
Definitely at the beginning, it was a lot of me kind of yelling at Anthony. I'm like, we need this shit to sound like XYZ.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I don't know if we can really do that. And then, we both got a lot better. Don't Save Me and Nobody were some of the songs that we started working on a lot earlier. And those were both songs where the beats on my computer. Obviously Anthony adds so much and all that kind of stuff. But as things kept progressing, World's End was a song that we had towards the end. I didn't touch anything for production on that song. That's all Anthony.
What do you use to make beats?
So I use FL because I'm not a real producer. I'm joking. And then Anthony uses Ableton.
Okay, yeah.
That kind of makes it hard because we can't send project files to each other. We got to stem everything out. Mm-hmm. And that shit gets toxic real quick.
Do you use a lot of samples?
Yeah, so it's sample-based hip-hop, right? So,
yeah.
That's the core of what we do. A lot of our songs, you can turn the sample off and there's still music there. A lot of music. Don't Save Me. The sample's Don't Save Me is a weird example because the sample's really prominent, but we played so much. There's live bass, live keys, all of those drums are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Is there a lot of live instruments on multiple of the songs with the samples?
Oh, yeah. A lot of the stuff there is played. Nobody, I played the bass line on that. Obviously, the guitars throughout the whole entire project. Yeah, a bunch of songs were those live guitars. Those were definitely something that kind of informed the direction, and we wanted stuff to sound live and stuff.
Lyrically, these tracks carry the weight of a new MC with something to prove, with bars about systemic corruption, rising to the top, and consuming large amounts of alcohol. There's a lot of uplifting bars and nods to other rappers like Kanye, Tyler, Bobby Shmurda, and Chief Keef, just to name a few.
People make the comparison all the time, right? Kanye, like,
Yeah.
first music I ever remember hearing when I was like a little kid was like All Falls Down. Like, I'm from Chicago, right? So
Yeah.
not too hard to see like that influence there. In my head, I kind of pretend that he disappeared after Donda.
Yeah. Dude, Sam. There's a line on there where you say, I heard the bigger the ego, the bigger the man. What does ego mean to you?
So I have like an issue where a lot of the things that I do are probably inspired by spite. Like I rap about some like the struggles and the things that like I gone through growing up, and to some extent, like I think like the only reason I ended up being in any like sort of good position is largely because I have like even if it's unfounded, like really large sense of self-worth and self-belief. Bigger the ego, bigger the man is just kind of like an example of like, it's like, there's a voice in my head that does believe that 100% wholeheartedly. But saying it out loud, especially in that way, it sounds kind of fucking ridiculous. I love myself probably more than I love anybody else. That is like point blank fact. Maybe it's wrong, maybe it's not, but it's what got me here, so.
The record is also full of guest artists, with some of the highlights being Kennedy Rose's hooks on Don't Save Me and Nobody, Big 8, who delivers one of the meanest verses on Confrontation, and the track Preacher, which has some of the most manic performances from John, as well as the rapper Colin, who sounds like Danny Brown off of All Sorts of Uppers.
I don't know when you were heard, but I don't concur. I came in to turn. Calling the heart of your mama could vouch. You niggas got something to learn.
Colin, he did his thing on Preacher, like when it's saying like, it's something like Danny Brown pockets. And then obviously Kennedy Rose, she did her thing on Nobody and Don't Save Me. Like, that's one of those things where it's like, I can't sing. So it's like, I wrote those choruses, sang her like really horrible demos, and I texted them to her, and she blew them out of the water.
I love Confrontation. That's maybe my favorite song on the album.
Big 8, so I can't believe I forgot to mention him. Honestly, like, I said the word confrontation like 3 times at the end of my verse. He did a way better job at like taking the word confrontation and making it a theme throughout this whole verse and everything. So I'm so grateful for that because I didn't know what I was gonna call that song. I was like, if he doesn't talk about confrontation, I gotta find a new name.
One of the album's most popular tracks, and the first one that comes up when I search for John on Spotify, is World's End, which has maybe the most climactic production and impressive flows on the record, despite him recording it after work one day when he was drunk and sick. It sounds like crossing the finish line at the end of a movie, with bars about wanting to bring honor to his family's legacy and feeling like he's on top while still having room for improvement. It perfectly sets up the album's closer, Sunday Morning Genesis, which feels like the credits rolling. The lo-fi sample and more monotone delivery reminds me of Earl Sweatshirt, which he's cited as an influence.
My idea of a perfect outro sounds like an Earl Sweatshirt song. Sunday Morning Genesis, I think we were a little bit more creative. Like, I don't think anybody's gonna find that sample. Like, that shit had like 1,000 views on YouTube, right?
This album's gained a pretty devoted following on websites like Album of the Year and Rate Your Music, though you fiends that watch me probably already knew that, and I'm happy it's getting the recognition it deserves.
Funnily enough, it happened to look like swans. I never heard of swans. I didn't know that birthing was anticipated or nothing like that. And I remember I got this DM saying like, yo, you're blowing up on Album of the Year. I was like, what are we talking about? Yo, I don't even know what this was. I was like, I open it and I'm like, what? And then I see all these comments and reviews saying like, this swans dropped. I'm like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? So I'll go through and Google it, and yeah, lo and behold, it still looks exactly the same. I think that's honestly what got us a lot of traction is that we ended up making something that looks like birthing. But if anything, I was copying myself in Sinful Temptations. It wasn't copying. I never heard of Swans before. Well, I still have yet to give it a listen. I'm honestly probably pretty terrible for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably like 2 hours long, though. All their albums are like super long.
Oh, shit. Maybe I won't.
What sound direction are you going in moving forward?
We're trying to make things a little bit more pretty. I would say the thing about Egotrip is that it's a little bit abrasive, especially my delivery, right? I'm kind of doing like the mean, I'm kind of yelling. The biggest criticism that we got from Egotrip is that the songs sound the same. And that was kind of on purpose. I wanted songs, I was like, we're going to make songs that sound really, really big. Like, it's like, I want a whole tape songs that sound like punch in your face and raw, all gas, no breaks till the end. We ain't got to do that again.
You do any live sets?
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at next. I mean, Anthony and I are kind of separated right now, right? Because I live in San Diego, and Anthony, he lives in freaking Philadelphia still. Probably be on the West Coast first. So if anybody's listening from the West Coast, you might see me sometime soon.
Hell yeah, pull up. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think it's great? Think it sucks? Who should I cover next? Big shout out to John Michel for doing the interview. I'll link the full thing in the description. And as always, if you enjoyed, you know the drill.